to Mayor Boris Johnson. It's been a while. How are you, me old son?
How are you, Jeremy? It's so nice to be on the programme again. I'm sorry I've been in places like Samoa.
Oh, well, lovely Samoa. What have you been doing there? Business or what?
The Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, and I chair the business forum along it. It's a long way, 30 hours flying.
Mate, it is. I haven't spoken to you for a while, and I want to start quite seriously. In my mind, the British public had stopped listening to the Tories completely, Lord Marland, and I think that this role of gaffer tape, frankly, could have been elected the way it went. I don't think in my 59 years I can remember a government after such a short period of time having made so many, unforced errors, but showing such little planning. It's all reactive, not proactive. Falling over themselves, alienating really important demographics in this country, pensioners, veterans, farmers. To me, my view to a Tory would be this. It makes it even worse that the party allowed this to happen. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think we deserve to be thrown out. We became a very bad government towards the end. We pushed taxation up to the breaking point. We were ceasing to run things effectively, and we deserved to lose. But isn't this a reminder of how bad a Labour government can be? This is the worst honeymoon, as you rightly say, any government's ever had.
Yeah. I
was saying to a number of Labour peers recently, yesterday, in fact, we had hoped for a fairly steady Blairite-type government. In fact, we've got a pernicious, rather nasty government that's effectively gone out and punished certain people who they think are Tory voters. And that's not a way to run a country.
No.
I'd also say, Jeremy, I think you'd agree with me that the budget was a disaster, not least because she's followed up by saying that she's not going to raise taxes again. Well, the spending that they've set about can only move one way, and that is increased taxes.
You're a businessman. Explain this to me and my 5 listeners, right? This is what I don't understand. If I'm running Great Britain PLC, I want both the public sector to be effective for my people, but I need the private sector to be successful because that builds businesses, creates jobs, and as I would understand it, that creates money that filters down to the economy as a whole. But we have a government who, backed by their trade union paymasters, seem only interested in bloating the wages or the rights of people in the public sector and saying to anybody who is, in effect, anything to do with sort of success, self-success, no, we're going to tax you to the extreme, we're going to treat you like a pariah, and these people will then leave this country or close their businesses. And would it be right to say that in 2 or 3 years, that affects the tax revenue? So how is that basic common economic sense? It makes sense to me.
Well, as you rightly say, a lot of the high tax earners are considering their options. Because they haven't shown any certainty over pensions, people were cashing in their pensions before the budget, which shows the mentality of people that if you don't give clear signals, people get worried and start doing things that are adverse to the economy. No, I think this economy is in a real mess. It is arguable that public pay was behind private sector pay, but once you start awarding people 50%, 15% pay rises in the private sector, they're all going to say, I want a 15% pay rise, or I might go off and be a train driver on $100,000 a year.
Yeah, for a 4-day week. What did you make of this petition, by the way, yesterday? It's reached 2.6.
It's wonderful, isn't it? It's wonderful. It's joyous.
Not going to make any difference, though, is it?
It's not going to make any difference, nor should it, in fairness. But I do think it's joyous that people can have the right to complain. And this is a great petition. I mean, I was seeing it going up in thousands before my very eyes yesterday. It was great fun to watch.
Acting legend Michael Caine has backed the petition, demanding fresh action. I've got some breaking news, actually, whilst we're on air, Lord Marland. Hope you don't mind me jumping in. According to Reuters, this is breaking news from the Middle East. Israel's cabinet has just approved a ceasefire deal with Lebanon. Benjamin Netanyahu was speaking shortly. If anything comes from that, we'll bring it straight to you, or Kev will as well. It seems...
Well, it was well telegraphed, Jeremy, that ceasefire, which is very good. I have to say, I don't think they're going to stop on Hamas.
No, I don't either. Can I just ask you, we talk about your overview of this government. Today we heard that Vauxhall are closing a van factory in Luton, 1,100 jobs. We know their obsession with, you know, wind power, and they're trying to destroy the custodial passing down of farms. They want to get Britain back to work. But on the same day, they'll announce 500 million off, you know, defence spending. Do you believe there's a plan, or do you believe that so bad was the Tory sort of effort in the end that it was just that Ming Vase approach that we talked about? No plans, just keep quiet and you'll get elected. Because there are a lot of people that listen to this, Lord Marland, who are genuinely worried about this country. Genuinely.
Yeah, well, I'm extremely worried about it. We're about to pay the highest tax. 38% is the average, the highest tax on our incomes that we've ever paid. And we can't see that there's going to be an end to that, because the spending that they've gone through without reform of the civil service or the public sector is just enormous and adds directly to the bill. They've invested in all the non-productive things. So the productive things are going to be transport, where you up the transport sector. That puts growth into the economy. Obviously, housing puts growth into the economy. That's grinding to a halt. And I am chairman of a house builder, and we're shutting up shop. It's very perilous, and it showed they didn't have a strategy by the way they went about the budget. Because, you know, why, as you rightly say, and you're always right on these things, is why tax the worker?
No, I mean, I genuinely, you know, I could sit here and say, I remember 79, if you didn't get 30%, you went on strike. And I tell you one thing, that the only thing that really sustains me, whether the Tories can get it back together under Baden. What do you make of her, by the way?
Well, the jury's out. It would have been out on both of them because they're both pretty inexperienced. She's got a terrific opportunity now.
Yes, but of course there is the spectre of reform, and I know that a lot of people in the Tory party will poo-poo that, but I myself maintain and would say to you directly, and anybody else, that in that election campaign, the Reform Party wasn't talking far right. They were talking for millions of people, the policies that we were brought up as Conservatives to believe in that had been lost. And we were talking today about this Luton thing and net zero. You were with Boris when he was the mayor. He also bought in with Theresa May to this net zero crap that seems to be, I think that was one of the beginnings of the downfall of the Tories, because I keep saying it, apologies, but it's rolling, isn't it, this sort of show? In America, it was proven by Trump, they said it's about petrol, it's about food, and it's about immigration. It's not about ideology. It's not about net zero. That's not... It might be, of course, we should all be responsible, but Lord Marland, isn't it fair to say that the people of this country want stuff sorted now? Yeah,
and I'm fairly sure I said on this show that the Conservatives should have done a deal with Nigel Farage some 6-9 months before the election. Nigel is a very brave politician, and you know, he does touch, rather like Boris, he has the ability to connect with people, and he is a serious threat to the Conservative Party. The only issue for them is that, you know, they've got 5 years on the back benches, of which there are only 5 MPs, and getting airtime is going to be a problem. But quite clearly, a lot of Tory voters were disaffected and went to vote for Farage. A lot of Labour voters, and this is going to be the interesting thing, in Scotland and in some of the Labour heartlands, they are inclined to go to reform. So the Conservatives have got a real task. They've got a great opportunity if they can really bind together and show the differentiation and prey on the, not P-R-A-Y, but P-R-E-Y, on the really incompetent government that we're saying at the moment. And I'm really sorry to say this as a Briton. You know, I had hoped for something that was going to be sensible, but I'm afraid it's not. And it puts us in a very bad way. And
you know, the thing that sustains me is that I'm absolutely convinced in my lifetime, at the end of this 4.5 years, the British people will never vote for a socialist government again. There's two. I genuinely believe that. I genuinely believe that. And whether Farage and Reform and the Tories do a deal or they continue to split it, whether there'll be a call for a different election, I don't know. Now, a couple of more light-hearted...
Well, because I'm an antique, just because, you know, because I've been around such a long time. I remember Dennis Healey putting up taxes to nearly 84%. He couldn't put them up to 90%. The Conservatives got in, and then Blair got in afterwards. So, you know, it is possible.
Right, a couple of more light-hearted things, Lord Marland. Your ex-boss Boris Johnson has today blamed the Church of England for Britain's obesity crisis, saying, and I quote, that its failure to provide people with spiritual sustenance has led them to gorge. The former PM said that when he was younger, it was very rare for there to be a fatso in the class. He hasn't looked in the mirror. Now they're all fatsos. I'll be shot for saying they're fatsos, but Welby and his crudies are responsible for the fatsos. It's just, I mean, he's mad, but you miss him in a slightly strange way, don't you?
Well, you do. And, of course, he's a bit of a fatso sometimes himself.
Yeah,
so it takes one to say one. No, I think on a serious note, though, that the Church have, again, failed their flock. And they've not just failed it on this particular Smythe case, which is absolutely disgraceful, but they failed it in lockdown.
No, I wouldn't.
Shutting the churches.
Do you know, I wouldn't disagree with you at all. Finally, for today, love your take on this. J.K. Rowling has today taken on and criticised the British Transport Police, and this has really garnered interest across wherever, for rules that, at the moment where we stand, Lord Marland, a transgender officer can strip search a woman. And most people in this country who are just into common sense and madness go, we're not disrespecting if you want to be transgender, but it is becoming ludicrous, and it's coming to a point where women are not being protected. Men, what do you make of that? Because I sort of think J.K. Rowling is an incredibly brave woman. I don't agree, as Mike said, with all her policies, but she's talking about women's and men's rights, isn't she?
Well, you've taken the words from my lips, which was, I think she's an incredibly brave person.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's standing, and the criticism she must get must be absolutely horrendous online, and the people who are trolling her must be absolutely awful. But good for her. She's standing up for something she believes in. We all respect people who do it. We don't necessarily agree with them, but I do respect people who stand up for something that they believe in.
It's always great to have you on. I'm glad you're back home from Samoa. We really appreciate the time. We'll have you on very, very soon.